Hello and welcome to Mind the Flat. I'm Tom Crowther.
I'm Amy Isles.
And I'm Chris Heffernan.
And today we're going to be doing an episode called One Tech Too Far. Have we gone too far with technology? Do we need to take a step back? Or should we progress even further? But first of all, we're going to have a little chat about what kind of sci-fi gadget, if we could invent it, what would it be? What would we bring into the world? Amy?
Well, I think you two are probably going to dump your arguments once you hear mine and automatically run and try and find someone to invest in my idea, because the technology I would really love to see is something that can just follow me round and clean up all my mess. Because, I always prioritise tidying up last. And I think you guys think that my mess doesn't get to me. And it does. It's just never my priority. So if I could just have something that does, clean, puts my clothes away.
So you're trying to invent a maid?
Yeah, but I don't want to resort to slavery, so...
Not slave.
You can pay them. I don't know what you...
Do you think
do you think cleaners, people that have cleaners,
are
slaves?
Yeah, but...
all these big corporations with their office blocks just either magically make the whole room clean, or they've got a hidden slave trade in the basement. Like, what?
Yeah, but with that you have to with a person. Oh, I'm so sorry. I've had 3 hours sleep. It's not going well. You have to book them in. It has to be convenient for them to find a convenient time to come and clean your house. If you had a robot or something that did it for you,
Like a
you
Roomba.
could just... What's a Roomba?
It's like a little circular little robot that you keep on the floor,
Oh,
and it hoovers up when you go
yeah,
out.
I know what you mean.
Obviously, it doesn't tidy the clothes that you've strewn along the
Yeah,
floor.
well, I would invent something that does your hoovering, does your cleaning, puts your clothes away, something like that.
Well, I'm definitely going to be coming back to this in my argument, Amy, don't worry. Okay, because that's the thing I've been looking at. Yeah.
Brilliant.
What's yours then, Chris? What would you invent?
I think teleportation. Because not for all the time. There's sometimes
Not all the time.
it's quite nice to walk, or it is quite nice to maybe go on a train and then you see some lovely landscapes and scenery, and that's great. But then other times, it's just a very long way, isn't it? And so just be able to go boop, 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 boo, and then arrive somewhere else
With those sound effects.
with those sound effects would be brilliant, wouldn't it?
Someone could turn that into a song. Boo 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 boo.
Because and then think also of the environmental impact. I don't know what energy would have to go into teleportation, but think, all the cars that wouldn't need to be on the road. You just wake up, you'd go, boop, 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 and then you'd end up at work. Bish bosh, job done.
DJ CH remix of those tracks.
Are we ignoring all of the kind of philosophical implications of would you still be the same person that you arrived? Would you have to destroy your particles and then put them back together again? And when you put them back together again, would you be? What would be the religious implications of that? Would you would your soul be destroyed? Would it be transported?
Also, I just don't think it's possible. I just don't think that's ever going to be invented, because I just can't see how it's going to work.
Doesn't mean you can't want it though, can you?
This is true, fair point. But you can want magic, but it's different from
Tom's
technology.
question was, which technology, if anything could be invented, would you want to be invented? So teleportation, I think. But yeah, I was actually thinking about this the other day when I was walking along the road. I was thinking about teleportation.
I wish I wasn't walking along the road.
No, I was quite happy walking, but I was thinking, it's quite a weird idea, and it just doesn't seem possible in the slightest. Because how do you get a being from here to there?
So we've gone from the dramatically possible with Amy's maid idea to the dramatically impossible.
Yeah.
We're going with the
And where are you
extremes
falling,
here.
Tom?
Where am I falling? Lightsabers. I want a lightsaber.
Aww.
Aww.
Why is that cute?
Why
kill
do you
people.
want
Why is that cute?
Why do you want a lightsaber?
Well, because I used to play with one as a child, and it was just plastic, and you'd hit it at
And
people.
you actually want to damage someone this time.
Not necessarily someone, maybe, but no. It'd just be fun to have a little fight with someone, wouldn't it?
But you can have a little fight with a pretend lightsaber.
No, but then it doesn't do the.
Can't you get them with sound effects now?
Yeah,
but it's not real. I want a real one.
So you want one that could potentially lead to your to your opponent's death.
Yeah, but in the same way that a sword could. Swords exist.
Then why don't you just get a sword?
Because it's not a lightsaber. It's all self-contained. Like, it's
But
obvious. You don't need to explain it.
but people don't fight with sharp swords, do they?
They do if they want to kill each other.
Exactly.
Why
so,
do you want to kill
so
someone?
then we come back to the idea of killing. Whereas a blunt sword is the equivalent of a plastic lightsaber.
But it doesn't make the sounds.
Well,
Well, doesn't
why
break
do you need the
sparks.
killing element? Why can't you just
Makes it
have
fun,
like
doesn't it?
a laser beam?
Makes it fun. That's why you like roller coasters and stuff, because there's that element of fear.
But you're not going to die on a roller coaster.
Well,
You're very
I don't
unlikely
think
to. I think you're
that's
more
why
likely
people
to
like,
die with a lightsaber than on a roller coaster.
People like driving fast cars, don't they?
This is
Because
true.
people often die doing that.
Yeah.
Same thing.
But you see, you say you want
Just
the sound
reckless.
effects. You're pretty good at the sound effects anyway.
Zoom.
So
Boom, boom, boom. Mind the flat. Boom, boom, boom.
Right then, let's get on with the main argument then. So Chris, why have we gone too far with technology?
well, I think to start off, Amy has handed me my main argument really in her cleaning one, okay? Because the thought of having a robot, as we already do to a certain extent, that can vacuum the floor. Well, actually, 30 minutes of vacuuming, as far as the health benefits and exercise, is the equivalent to 15 minutes of kickboxing. So doing your housework is actually an incredibly healthy activity. And so going around with a vacuum cleaner, that's great for you to get that exercise. If there's a robot going around doing it for you, then you're missing out on that exercise, that vital part of keeping fit. No need to pay for a gym membership, just vacuum your house.
But vacuuming up isn't very enjoyable. If you had like a robot vacuum cleaner, that doesn't necessarily stop you from exercising, and it probably actually gives you time to go and do a more enjoyable form of exercise. Like people do sport like kickboxing because they enjoy it.
See, I'd say there is something quite
Satisfying?
something quite satisfying about their sense of achievement of, oh, look at this really needs a good tidy up. And you tidy it up and you think, not only have I tidied it up, I've got a load of exercise.
But isn't that don't you get a bigger sense of achievement by investing yourself in a sport that you really enjoy and seeing your progression through that, rather than looking around your house and going, oh, it's clean?
I guess some people do, some people don't. And I guess the thing is, like, with Chris's thing here, is it's kind of an aggregate effect. Like, yeah, there will be people that will be like, oh, yeah, great, more time for sport. But there will equally be lots of people that will be like, oh, yeah, great, more time for blobbing in front of the telly.
Yeah, but it all depends on what that person enjoys. Like, you don't have to spend that time going and doing sport. You can spend it doing something else that you enjoy more. Like, I don't think many people would prioritise cleaning as a really enjoyable activity. Whereas if you've got something to do that for you, as long as you're still keeping a healthy lifestyle.
But that's the thing. As long as you are. Whereas the idea that, say 50 years ago, if you wanted your house to be clean, you had to do something about it. There is that compulsion to do that activity. There's no, oh, do I feel like going to the gym today? It is, I need this house tidied, and you do it. And you get into that routine of doing it. And really, it doesn't take that long. We're not talking about, a whole day, an hour maybe. Doing that, you've got physical exercise. You can still have the rest of your day. But I think that is the biggest problem with robots, is that they're taking away human activity. And that the idea of lots of technology is making life simpler, which also makes life lazier. That there's this idea that everything can be done by sitting down. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. I mean, you can get, and this is just ridiculous, a Bluetooth toaster. Okay? A toaster which connects to an app. In what world does someone think, picking some toast out, putting it in the toaster and turning a dial is too much work? I need an app which will put the toast down for me, remember how long I like my toast to be in there for, and then pop it up after that time.
Chris, that sounds like something you'd absolutely love. That sounds like your perfect thing. It knows exactly the sort of toast that you want, exactly how you want it. You love that.
But there's a dial. I know where the dial should be, and that will do my toast
But
when
other
I
people
want
can come
it.
along and move the dial.
Yeah, but
Whereas if
with
you've got
an
it
app.
You
preset...
know where the dial is.
Okay,
So-
I think we're getting sidetracked
But
with
anyway-
toast here again.
But you're
How
sa-
many episodes have we been sidetracked by toast on? So you're saying we're all going to end up like the blob people from WALL-E?
Exactly. Look at Wally. I mean, that's where
Yes,
technology is going.
That is
That's
an
okay.
accurate representation of the future.
that's
I
definitely
think-
non-fictional.
I think if we look at sort of the fact that 1 in 4 adults are now obese in this country, 1 in 5 children aged 10 to 11 are now obese, surely there is some correlation with the fact that 1 in 10 children have a mobile phone by the age of 5. Okay? So take the mobile phone. The mobile phone allows you to communicate with all your friends. Brilliant. Technology has given you a platform for being able to speak to people and be with people, but you can do that from your bed, from your settee. You don't have to go anywhere. So when I was young, I used to go outside, knock on various people's doors. You around? You around? You around? And then we'd all go off and play football because I didn't have anything else to do. That I was sitting at home and it was a nice day. Let's go out and do something. Whereas now, technology means you can find lots to do in your home, which is good to a certain extent. But again, it's driving this sense of inactivity and this idea that you don't have to go out and play football with your friends because you can just play it on the computer.
But I think also it makes a lot of social interaction a lot easier. Like, take social media, for example. Like, you can communicate so much quicker with someone and organise events, like sporting events, charity events, whatever it may be, so much more effectively using technology than having to, like, run around and write letters and go around to people's houses. And
I think as well as, like, yes, you're talking about the negative health implications of certain technologies, but there are also massive positives that come out of technologies. Like, look at medical technology that's advanced. I mean, the sort of like keyhole surgeries and that sort of thing that have been developed in the recent years, and you just wouldn't have been able to do 100 years ago. And so, yes, we're getting back to a similar sort of argument that we've had in the past. But I think, like, there are so many technologies that can prevent these things from happening, that can help us to understand. And I think, as I'll talk about in a bit, there are some that are on the cusp of being practicable that aren't quite there yet, that could take it even further.
And on that note as well, kind of technology has allowed us to research into those things. So it's allowed us to research into inactivity and for people to realise maybe in more depth that they haven't done before, that how it's bad for you, why it's bad for you, and what you can do about that. And that information, as I've kind of already said, is much more widely available due to technology.
But then, have we only got the need to research all this inactivity because we're now more inactive because of technology? So technology is necessary to undo the work that technology has done in the first place.
Possibly to some extent, but I think it kind of it counters itself in that way, in that when technology was kind of emerging and encouraging inactivity, that is now being countered by the research we've got into that.
I think it's like it's like a 2 steps forward, 1 step back sort of thing. It's like, yes, you are going to take some hits from this increase in technology, but there's going to be greater benefits to come from it in terms of other health implications that aren't even touched by the negative side. So yes, you talked about the obesity, but there are like specific treatments for like cancer and that sort of thing that have come about as a consequence of technology. I can't remember what it's called, but there's something that like passes your genes and checks and cuts out faulty genomes and stuff, and it can lead to the prevention of degenerative diseases and that sort of thing. And it's not quite there yet, but it's like these sorts of things. Like, you can't say that these things are being negatively impacted by technology in any way, really. They're only being positively impacted. So
I guess that moves quite nicely onto my area then, which is that I think we're in the perfect space in technological advancement at the present. Like you were saying, we've got 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And I think where we are now is kind of situated perfectly so that the negative impacts don't overtake the positive impacts. So as we've kind of touched on, technology has so many benefits. We can experience new cultures, like travel, for example. We haven't talked about that yet. Technology has made travel so much easier, but then everything's got a flip side as well. So one of the drawbacks from travel might be the environmental impacts. Like, I think a lot of technology nowadays kind of uses up a lot of fossil fuels, a lot of finite resources that we've got. And I think if we keep overusing those resources, we're going to get to a point where we can't advance anymore with technology, not necessarily just in travel, but across the spectrum, because we are going to run out of these finite resources that they're using. So I think there's a certain extent to the benefits that technology can have.
I think this kind of comes into so I'll bring mine in at the same time as yours then, but with the idea that the way that we can overcome these resource constraints is through more technology, so that we can develop more green technology. I mean, there are now like printable solar cells that you can like print out and stick on things. You don't have to have these chunky, great big panels anymore. And there's this company called Solar City, and they created like roof tiles that look just like normal slate that you just stick on the solar, like the translucent looking solar panels, and you don't know it's there. You look at a house and it's like a normal house. And so we can create all of these like solutions to these energy problems, and it will drive forwards a more sustainable future.
But then why is that not more readily available?
Because it's not a technology that it's not currently practical on a commercial scale. So it's not yet there in terms of being good enough to be able to sell at a reasonable price.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that's like technology hasn't gone far enough. And that if we push technology and go even further, these sorts of things will become more readily available.
But will we be able to push it far enough in time for those to still have benefits before the drawbacks of technology overtake them?
My question here then would be, if we're at the ideal point now, we're going to continue to use diesel cars, we're going to continue to have aeroplanes, like that's just, that. If we continue where we are now, everything's going to be destroyed.
Well, if we continue where we are now, in 12 years' time, we're going to have irreversible effects of.
So either you have to say, right, we should have gone back, and we get rid of households having 5 cars, and that there's like one car.
Sorry, what households do you know have 5 cars?
That was a bit of exaggeration. 2-3 cars.
It's the Surrey life for you.
People who have 2 or 3 cars, you restrict people to maybe having 1 car, or you go back to when families all lived in one house together. So as in sort of grandparents and then their children and then their grandchildren, and so they have this 1 car that works for all those people. And in that way, there is less technology being used, and so you don't have to worry about. So people aren't driving to work. People are walking. People are working nearby where they live. They walk to work. You're cutting technology out of people's lives, or you have to go forward and you have to say, right, we need this technology. We need a way of transporting people across distances to commute to work. So we need technology that's going to make this green, and that's going to work out and can be rolled out everywhere.
I think in terms of going backwards, I think we've progressed to a point now where we can't go backwards in terms of like infrastructure. Not everyone can live near where they work in order to walk to work. We've gone too far, and I guess my argument is, at the present time, we are at a point where technology is still developing, and I think there still does need to be that development. But I guess what I'm saying is that it doesn't need to go too far to increase these negative impacts that we've already got.
Okay, so we've focused a lot here on like health issues and maybe like environmental impacts, which obviously also have health implications. But what about then the idea of like power and technology, the whole like listening into you, data like Cambridge Analytica, all that sort of stuff? Like, how do each of the arguments fit into that sort of thing?
I suppose the thing is that stuff just wasn't a thing in the past. It didn't exist, and so people didn't have to worry about their information being stolen or sold. And I suppose the thing is, people then couldn't hack into you and find out your secrets. But then
It sounds like a sci-fi film, doesn't it? Someone hacking into your own genetic code or something.
But then the problem is, you can't hack into other people. So, and I suppose that is the thing here is the security benefits of being able to use technology to track people is significant. What I'm saying is that, yes, people might say, oh, technology's gone too far, like, because we have no privacy anymore. And it was better in the old days when you didn't have phones, people couldn't track it, all your every move and know what you were talking about at dinner, and you didn't have fridges that listened to everything you said and sold it to the Russians.
Where have we gone? Back to the Cold War?
That's what they say, don't they? That Russians are going to take over Britain through our kettles. You not hear that?
I've not heard that. That's amazing.
Because everyone was getting Wi-Fi and Bluetooth kettles and everything, and the suggestion was that Russia could use them to hack in and take over Britain by
destroy us all.
stopping us being able to make tea.
It's just, I think, just imagine that. It's like the thing that brings Britain down is the fact that we drink too much tea.
Our Bluetooth toasters have failed us.
So that's people's argument to say go back to my position of back in the old days, you know, when we didn't have to worry about these sort of things. I know, it's really bad. I kept doing regional accents to talk about the past, as if it's some sort of, yeah.
As if people with accents are like backwards or something.
So I'm drawing on wild stereotypes here. But equally, that then means that people can't use that technology for good. So for, say, tracking down drug cartels or terrorist activity, that's what technology can then be used. So we might not want to be spied ourselves, but lots of us would probably like the idea of spying being done on other people.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the big thing, is that it's not technology that's the problem, it's that we don't know how to use it properly.
Yeah.
It's that it's grown at such a pace that we haven't developed these kind of ethical frameworks, or not even just ethical, but like practical frameworks to deal with these issues. We don't know what... I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that like policymakers don't understand the technologies, and so the people that are making laws and like guidelines don't understand what the things are doing and can't keep up with what the things are doing. How can we ever expect to be able to guard ourselves against it and that sort of thing? It's quite worrying, I think, and I think so. That's like, I wouldn't want technology to stop progressing, but I feel like probably we do need to kind of take the pace down a little bit, or do something to improve our efforts to understand things and improve technological literacy and that sort of thing.
I was just going to say, like, how far do you think it is possible for us to kind of catch up with technology?
Well, I think not enough is being done. I mean, there are, like, in this country, there have been movements forwards, like kids in primary school now are learning learning basic coding and that sort of thing, and it's compulsory now, I believe, in secondary school. But that's not enough, and I think we talk too much just about the scientific side of technology. We're not talking about the other sides, that how it affects other spheres, social spheres. We're not having a proper understanding of that. I think that goes into the whole idea that we're not properly taught about things like citizenship in the right kind of way. It's not just about technology. It's about technology. It's about like political systems. It's about
the application of technology.
Yeah, exactly. And there's all these sorts of things, and I think it just goes back to education and learning about them. And I think the really big thing central to this kind of argument is that we can't do anything to stop technology, because technology isn't like one person, one mad professor in a little basement knocking together all these little gadgets. People across the world in different countries, different jurisdictions, they're doing different things with different incentives. Some are doing it for money, some are doing it for power, some are doing it because they think it's cool. Like, you've got, and it's so dispersed across the globe, is that you just can't stop it. So if we can't stop it, we have to do something to educate ourselves, move forwards, understand it better, build it into frameworks, that sort of thing.
Would you want like a completely techno house? So
I mean, what, just like drum and bass like pumping through all the time?
Because also we've spoken on
pulsing lights.
Going back to DJCH at the start.
We've spoken about sort of the bigger world of technology, and these massive things. But we sort of put it back to sort of our day-to-day lives, and the idea that we could be living in. So, for example, you get lights that are controlled on your phone. The idea that your entire house could be controlled by your phone. And I think some of it is quite like the heating. Being able to warm your house up so that when you arrive home it's warm is brilliant. But
we've got that at home. So we've got the lights, the heating. A lot of the rooms have smart speakers. We've got like the camera, like the Hive cameras as well. So like if someone knocks on the door at home, it's proper creepy. If someone knocks on the door at home, both my parents get a notification as soon as they like come up to the door. It's like the motion sensor is triggered. It zooms in on the person's face, takes a picture of their face, and sends it to my parents so they know who's at the door.
What?
It's
Oh my god,
So you're
Big Brother
living
is
in this
watching you.
world.
Yeah.
Do you think it's worth it, or do you think it's more that we're just being plugged by capitalism, that this is the best way to live and embrace it?
I think it's a mix of both. I think it's like, yeah, it's advertised to the point where we think these things must be cool. And I think, like, I love things like Teslas and stuff. I'm just like obsessed with them. But how much of that is just because I've been told it's cool, and how much of it is because it's actually cool? I think there's a bit of both, really. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it, so long as it's not like controlling us to the point where we stop buying food so that we can buy smart cameras. Like, I don't think it's like, if you're happy with it and you like it, I don't see there being much of a problem. I think the problem comes from the fact that people don't understand the implications of the things that they're doing, what they're using, why they're using it, how they're using it. And I think like the whole education thing, I think, goes back as well to the obesity issue that you were talking about, Chris, and that if people people don't see these things, it's like micro things throughout your life. You don't see the fact that you sat down more, that you're not going out and talking to people. They just get cut from your life and never give it a second thought. If we then tell people, if it becomes more obvious to people that these are things that are happening, you're doing less cleaning, you're not going out and visiting people as much. If people are aware of this, they're going to counteract it. But if they don't know, they're not going to go, oh, I've got all this free time, I'm going to go do more exercising. They just don't think about it.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Have I won? Is this the first win?
The first win. Have you not won one yet?
We've not done really many winning ones, have we?
Actually, I won the very first one, so I just realised no one could see that.
You just sound like you just went. Yeah, I think technology's just got to keep going forward, hasn't it? I think
a lot of it comes from the fact that it can't go back.
Yeah.
It's like, if it can't go back, what's the point in arguing for it going back? Like, realistically,
we're not arguing for it to go, but was it better in the past? And I think that's the thing. It's not about going back. It's were things better before this technology came along? And I think probably in the grand scheme of things, I would argue that as far as social life is concerned, I think in lots of ways, day-to-day life, I would argue, was better before sort of the blow, and I would not say necessarily technology, but I'd say the blow up in technology, where sort of everything you could possibly imagine has a Bluetooth or an apt version, and that sort of everything you could possibly imagine has to have some sort of technology in it. I would argue that the social life and sort of our day.
I don't know if I don't know. I think personally, the social side of things has got much better in terms of like long distance relationships. Like, my parents and me have always said like FaceTime has been fundamental to maintaining our relationship, and like my friends at home, like, it's made it so much easier that you can just drop them a message whenever you like and keep that connection. Whereas my dad, he hasn't kept in touch with any of his uni friends because when he went to uni that technology wasn't available, and it's something he really regrets because it took a lot longer to like write a letter and send it off and think about, and you had to say everything all at once in that one letter. It's so much easier to kind of stay in contact with people, and as I said earlier, it makes organising seeing people much easier because you can just drop them a message. Are you about now? Yeah, I'm about. Do you want to do something? Let's go.
It's easier to organise events as well and things like that. And circulate information about events.
So maybe not. What I'm trying to get, I don't know. What I'm trying to get is maybe the.
I think you're getting.
The simplicity. To me, the simplicity of life in the past was an advantage, and so I'm absolutely. But I think FaceTime, those technologies, actually make life simpler. Yeah. I think they're examples that actually do make life simpler. Whereas I think lots of other technologies, it's about pretending to make life simpler, but actually you've got all these different things that you can actually just do yourself.
It's like
it's not that complicated.
Or something. It's like you've got headphones that are Bluetooth that you just stick in your ears, but is that wire really much of a problem?
Well, that's the thing I found. Like, I love the wire. Like, if I go into a shop and I need to speak to someone and I can take them out, drop them, and because I've done them on my t-shirt, they just hang on the wire. Yeah. The thought behind it, you take them out and it's where do I put them? So I'd say
The annoying thing is as well because they got like light sensors in them, so that's how they know they're in your ear. Is that like it goes dark because you put them in your ear, and when you take them out, it sees the light, and it's like, oh, we're out the ear, we'll stop playing now. But then when you put them in your hand,
they start playing
they
again.
start playing again. So I get this quite a lot. It's like I'll be at the counter at a shop, I put them in my hand, I close my hand so I can pay, and then all of a sudden you just hear whatever I'm listening to like coming out of my hand. So yeah,
so I'd say I'd say like the capitalist technology, sort of these little things that
the materialism of
it, I think, is a problem, and it is, and I'd say it is a bit of a shame. But I think that is outweighed by, like we said, sort of the environmental things that will hopefully come in the future, and the medical advancements that we already have. And I think those levels of technology you just wouldn't want to live without. And the parts that do make it simpler. But I think there is this tendency to, once we've got something, to overkill it in the wrong areas.
Yeah.
Let's not be worrying about whether you can have invisible earpods that magically play music into your ear. Let's try and work out how we can do a cheap and efficient electric car that people can actually use.
Yeah, and understand, as you said before, Tom, understanding how we use technology and getting the most out of it in a way that isn't detrimental.
yeah, I think education.
Education.
Oh,
education.
God,
Education.
yes, thank you.
Didn't realise you wanted to be a headmaster, Chris.
Or a politician.
Yeah. Boom, boom, boom.
Thank you very much for listening.
And if you want to get in contact, you can find us on Facebook. We're Mind the Flat Podcast.
On Twitter, we're at mindtheflat_pod.
And Instagram at mindtheflat_podcast.
And if you want to respond to anything we've said in this episode or suggest a topic for another week, you can head to our Reddit. That's r/mindtheflat.
Or alternatively, you can drop us an email at mindtheflatpodcast@gmail.com.